Good day, YouTube. Moparmodeler here again. This is part 3 of my 65 Dodge Coronet build, where I go into detail on how I build a model. This part 3 will be on how I prep the body, how I clean the body to get it ready for paint. So this should be a very short video. I hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned. Okay, so the things that I use to clean a body is, well, the first thing you want to do, I guess, before you clean it, is go through the body and make sure it doesn't have any flash or anything like that. And this does right here. So you want to get rid of that, because obviously when you paint it, it's going to show and it's going to look really bad. Sometimes you have to sand things and then polish out what you've sanded and then primer it. And, you know, this, we're making a quick build, and even though there's a little flash here, I can, you know, knock that loose quite easily with some fine sandpaper. I like to start off with like a 400 and then work to 1,000. But, you know, first you want to look at the body and see what kind of problems there is, and you can see how dusty it is just from sitting around. It's got all kinds of different things on it, but you can barely see it. There's like a weird haze here, and what that is the trademarks, the writing on the inside of the body. And I always like to take that off because I think it bleeds through, and you'll see me do that. But I also like to take off the rough edges. You know, I'll use an X-Acto knife, and I'm not going to show you that. You know, I think you guys can understand how to do that. But I like to take the rough edges off the inside of the wheel wells. And then on the bottom of the body, you can see here there's a little roughness, you know. The same here, just to make things really nice. What I like is a lot of times you'll find a mold line right around the rear pillar, and there's nothing like that on this model. There's no serious anything that you have to take out. Just a little bit of flashing here and there, which could be easily knocked out with a little sandpaper, your X-Acto knife, or maybe even your thumbnail. You know, the object is to get the stuff off without really scratching up the rest of the body. But, you know, sometimes you have to. You know, right here, you know, that needs to come out. And I can already tell this is going to be an issue, because just trying to take that little bit out, it cuts into, you know, the rest of the model, parts that you want to foil. So that sort of sucks. There'll be a nick there, and you could fill that with putty and spend a lot of time with it, but, you know, I'm not going to. I just want to do a quick build and a decent paint job, but I do have to go and take the flashing off and clean that up. Anyway, so I know that I'm using a craft acrylic paint, and, you know, when I clean it, I actually use lacquer thinner. Now, I have these little bottles here that, you know, all you have to do is squeeze it. You don't have to tip it. It won't work if you tip it. You just squeeze it, and then lacquer thinner comes out. And then I have little eye drops. In my last video, I'll call them squeegees, but they're not squeegees. They're eye drops. And I just cut the end off of them and cram it on the end so it doesn't evaporate as quickly, and it doesn't leak, because when you're done using it, it tends to leak and it catches into this little bowl. So this is what I use. And then I like to use a somewhat clean, you know, you can use a clean one, but, you know, this is a cotton cloth. You know, it's a diaper. You can get these at auto parts stores. You know, people use these on the real cars for buffing and polishing. I like to use them on model cars too, and for cleaning. Again, I want to clean this to where I get the shine off, but I don't want to scratch the body. So I just simply, usually you want to wear a glove because the lacquer thinner will really mess up your hands. It'll dry them out, and Mama may not like that. So you want to put on some sort of glove. I do the old shoe polishing trick. Now, another thing I do is, because I don't know if you noticed, but every time I stop to do something, dust collects on here. It's like this plastic attracts dust. These are just some cheap dryer sheets. I don't even know where I got them. I think these are dollar store dryer sheets. I don't know. But I like to get a dryer sheet, and you don't have to rub the model. Rubbing the model is what causes the static electricity on it. But you see how all this dust is? It's picking up from my workbench. It's dirty. So I just take the dryer sheet and try to wipe that off. And what the dryer sheet does is, it does the same thing to the model car that it does to your clothes in the dryer. It removes static electricity. So you don't have to rub to get the static electricity off. You just touch it and it'll draw it out. But I like to use it to try to wipe off what loose garbage that's on here, inside and out. And already right here you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a hair here and some dust that just attracts. I mean, it's crazy how things attract. And if you remember me, the last video, painting the spoon, how it fish-eyed, it's because I didn't clean it well, and also because, the static electricity. And look, this thing is already filled with, the sheet's already filled with junk. It's attracting all kinds of static. So just basically do a wipe down. I haven't even cleaned it yet, but I like to get as much of the crap off of it as I can. Do the same for the rest of the pieces. Here you can see a little, a black piece, that's because the static just sucks it on there, So I just want to get the static off. Even if you don't get the dust off, you just want to get the static off, because once the static is gone, a lot of times you can blow off whatever dust with your airbrush. And cleaning these things is a constant thing when you get ready to paint, because there's always the opportunity for dust to collect. Even in just like a half a minute, what you had perfectly clean will have dust on it, So what's interesting here, this is one of my tricks. People talk about show quality models, and they say how you have these little, injection marks, you should sand them down. Fortunately for me, where these injection marks are is where it shows a pad. And I have material that I use that I will cover all this up, and it'll look like a black hood lining. So that's why you won't see me try to clean all that up on this particular kit. But so what I do is, to clean it off, I get this rag and I shake it out, because it's going to have dust on it, and I want to shoe polish this joker. I want to wrap it around my fingers like I want to polish shoes, for those of you guys who know what I'm talking about. And I just have it like this. I'm going to take this lacquer cleaner, and I got my little junk, I got me a little catch thing here, because these do tend to leak. And I'm going to just put a little lacquer thinner on my glove like this. Put my little thing, see it's already dripping out. I was too slow. Put that in there to help keep that. And then I'm going to take and just lightly rub on the plastic. And this lacquer thinner, already you can see how it just changed the color of that plastic already. It's like a a chalky white because it's taken that covering off of the plastic. And it's also removed whatever mold release was on the molds. You know, you don't have to scrub hard. This lacquer thinner will zip it off really quickly. And the reason why I do it on a rag is because I don't want to literally have so much lacquer thinner on here that I melt the plastic. And I want to get it even. It's kind of like I'm polishing it, but I'm not. And sometimes, because this lacquer thinner tends to dry quickly, I need to, you know, stop and put more on the rag. See, my rag's already dry, you know, hence keeping this bottle around. So you don't want to leave the lacquer thinner on it too long. That's why you just put it on the rag, not on the body. And then I'll show you how to clean that. You want to really get around the sharp edges too, because the sharp edges tend to, you know, if you want the paint to stick around those edges instead of leave, you know, sometimes when you paint something, you get the edges lighter than the rest of the model. That's because it's still got that mold release. Some people will think I'm crazy. He put lacquer thinner on that, he's gonna melt it. It does sort of a little bit. It takes off all that outer thing, you know. Get this good. But you did, I don't know if you can still see it or not, but there's a bad spot now, and I'm gonna have to, and there's a spot here because I left it on too long. I want to pause this for a minute, and I'll get some sandpaper, and I'll show you how to get off any rough spots if you put too much lacquer thinner on, or if there's just a spot you have to get out. So I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I'm back. I have here a piece of 1,000 grit paper, and I just buy regular big sheets of sandpaper. Usually you can get the paper where it has multiple different grits, and I just cut them in these little squares, and I write down on the back what it is. That way I always know what it is, because too many times I've wondered, what kind of paper do I got? So here I have this bad spot. Now I don't know if you can see it, but I can feel it. You know, here you can tell the difference on how it sounds. I'll just take a little bit of windshield washer fluid on there. You don't need a lot. And then take this, is again 1,000 grit, and I want to be careful because I don't want to mess up any of this stuff, and I'll just, 1,000 grit's not so hard, so I'll just go over the spot that I damaged with 1,000, and then I'll dry it off and see if I've gotten that rough patch off. You know, I like to use the water because it helps to, and I don't just do the spot, I kind of go around to make it even. Yeah, and then wipe it off, and you can see, but the roughness isn't there. It's just a slight discoloration, which is no big deal because we're painting it over anyway, so the discoloration is no big deal. Now, so this concludes my video on how I prep a body. I know that other people do it differently, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. I'm not saying that this is the only way or the way you have to do it. This is just the way that I do it. I hope this helps you out, and it you know, it's something that you can use in your future builds. And stay tuned for part 4. I've recorded most of it, but my camera shut down, so I still probably have more to do. But stay tuned for 4. So have fun. Remember, it's just a hobby. Build as much as you can. Good day.